with Chinese consumers. It's a free-flowing discussion, essentially discovery discussion. Hence, if you have anything to add or questions that you would like to ask, you raise your hand. We are open to discuss any consumer groups. So Syca will pick a consumer group, Natalia will pick a consumer group. If there is a specific consumer group that you would like to highlight or to talk about, also raise your hand, and we are gonna make sure to bring you on stage and essentially make sure that we follow through with that discussion. Syca and Natalia are both from my team, and essentially Natalia is our head of marketing and insights. And Syca is, as I mentioned yesterday, she was also on stage with us yesterday. She is the head of strategy, so she's very much on the ground when it comes to all the, consumer trends and consumer behavior. I see a couple of other China watchers also joining us. For example, Oscar here is also a fellow China watcher, and a few others. So don't be shy and raise your hand whenever you're ready to get on stage. So let's get started with this. And Syca, we're gonna follow your lead here a little bit. You said that you would like to talk about Chinese millennials. Can you quickly brief us all why Chinese millennials are your favorite group, and what exactly do you think is so special about them compared to all the other millennials out there?
Yay, thank you, Ashley. And hey, hello, guys. This is Syca here, and very glad to be here. So, my pickup is Chinese millennials and Gen Z. And among millennials and Gen Z, I prefer Gen Z better. And firstly, I would like to give you some matter of facts of Chinese Gen Z. So Chinese Gen Z will make up 27% of the population by 2025, and half of them will earn an university degree, which means they will mostly be highly educated. And then they will have an average of 18 jobs across 6 careers and 15 homes. Yes, so this is the basic and very much attractive effect of
I love
Chinese
it.
Gen Z.
You need to repeat that again. How many jobs and how many homes?
Yes, they will have an average of 18 jobs across 6 careers and 15 homes.
Well, this is straight from the future, right? You know how all the futurists about 20 years ago, they were talking about, don't worry about what you're studying in the university and in school, because the careers of tomorrow have not been invented yet. And indeed, it seems that Chinese Gen Zs are truly on that path of, continuous career change and fluid development. That's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. Exciting consumer group.
Absolutely right. Yes, because Gen Z, they're born in the digital era, so actually they're really used to getting information from those social media, from the short videos. So, and also they're quite positive about their future, and they really want to explore the world. Yes, and they're really willing to spend money, and that's why that so many brands, so many companies, they really want to focus on Gen Z, this consumer group, in 2021. And actually, I really want to bring up a case, a really new case to all of you guys.
Would love to hear.
So, you guys must know Louis Vuitton. Yes, LV. And actually, recently LV has published a new product, which is an air jacket, an air jacket. So the jacket is full of air, like literally air. But this jacket is labeled with LV, the label, and you can guess the price.
So it's just a jacket, like a raincoat? Is it for rain or for warm?
No, it's just for fashion.
Okay, just a fashionable, puffy jacket with air inside, right? And it's LV. Well, it must be ridiculous. It must be, I do not know, 10,000 RMB?
No. Yes.
Okay, well, somebody is raising their hand. I'm just wondering. Yeah, we have Zhongxi Li here. Well, maybe he's got a good guess. Natalia, do you want to guess the price of this peculiar accessory?
Yeah.
I think
I think it would be free.
Free. Oh, Syca.
Yeah,
is it free?
Oh, $3. No, I thought it would be free because
free for free, like $0. Zero.
think the other day it was a very popular hot topic in Douyin. So there was many fashion bloggers who were wearing that and then going around, and there was also so many like a joke video that you can handmade this jacket by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I'm not mistaken, it's over 10,000 renminbi.
No.
Yes, Syca, how much? Okay, unveil the secret.
Yeah, so the actual price is 20,000, 20,000, and 6,700.
Okay,
Yeah,
almost
so this
30k RMB.
Yeah, almost 30k. Yeah, you must think this is ridiculous, but guess what? The Chinese Gen Z, they're willing to pay.
Right.
And
Yeah,
why?
they're
Why?
really
Why?
willing to pay. Yeah, because you all know like luxury brands, they're very popular and trendy among Chinese people, especially the young people, because the Chinese Gen Z, they're willing to label themselves as they have a higher level lifestyle, and they have a higher taste. They have better taste, decent taste, and they are willing to establish their own personality and their own friend circle by buying those peculiar things. Like I know, I don't remember,
Like
maybe
Supreme.
1 or 2. Yeah, like Supreme, like the brick. The brick of Supreme, it costs like several tens of thousands. Yeah, it's also pretty like ridiculous, but people are willing to pay for it.
I know.
So just a very new, and I think this new case may be like interesting for you guys. And also I'd like to add that when comparing with Chinese Gen Z with other countries, and actually the Chinese Gen Z, they're more carefree. They spend more, and actually they save less than the Gen Z in the West. And actually, there's some reasons behind this fact. For example, when we're talking about the living environment, so the Chinese Gen Z always they are the only one child in the family. Yeah. So the parents, like all of their earnings, the parents are very willing to invest on their children. So this only one single child, they can get lots of attention and lots of investment from their parents.
And sometimes from grandparents as well, right?
Yeah. So, and also the Chinese Gen Z, they are like enjoying the fast and rapid growth of Chinese economic growth. So absolutely, their living standard is much higher than the previous generations. Yes, and this is for China, but for Gen Z in US or in Europe, often the family has more than one child. And also, those families, they have experienced the 2008 financial crisis and its brutal consequences. So there is this deep influence from the financial crisis in their heart. So they're more willing to save money and not to spend too much. Yes. Yeah. And this is something I would like to also mention about. Yes?
Yeah, and I feel that when it comes to Gen Zs in the rest of the world, especially in Europe, people in Europe, at least, they also want to stay a bit more reasonable. So that slogan, like, be reasonable, right? Don't overspend. It's somehow deeply ingrained, especially if you look at Germany, if you look at France, if you look at a couple of, other old markets. When it comes to the US, this spending is also national policy. So a good friend of mine, an American, I will never forget him saying that in the US, if you want to be patriotic, you need to pay with your dollar. So you basically you spend and you contribute to the economy, and that's how you showcase, you being American and Yeah. So in China, it seems that Gen Zs have a completely different motivation, right? Their motivation is to enjoy life and to just basically have your kind of circle and enjoy it. And they believe that they deserve, good stuff. And indeed, as Syca mentioned, since they were born, they have not seen economy going ridiculously wrong.
Right.
Like they've they've been born and they've lived through the most prosperous time, in Chinese history, probably, in the recent years, which makes them very optimistic about the future and about what's coming next. Korea is only going to get better, money, I'm going to only make more, and China is only going to grow bigger, etc., etc. Zongqi, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Actually, that's all very valid point. But it's like European and the United States is following what my parents' generation has been living. Like they were trying to save as much as possible, and that is actually in my family is still carried on in that kind of tradition. My nephew, for example, he's 22 years old. He is working for his parents' garment factory in Guangzhou area. He's a designer himself, and he doesn't spend as much because he know the business that well. That's why he would rather just do whatever. He doesn't need to pay more than necessary. That's how his spending habit is like, which is unlike most of other people his generation.
Absolutely, that's a very good input. And when it comes to also spending, very often, especially in Gen Z and millennial culture, if you don't spend, you also don't have the social currency. Or if you don't invest, or if you don't, belong to a certain club. So social currency is something that binds you together, something that you go and, gossip about with your friends, etc. So if you don't do that, then essentially people don't know what to talk to you about. What is the small talk? In China, nobody talks about the weather, right? People talk about certain, I do not know, idols they follow. So fan economy is very strong. Right now, very hot, especially amongst the millennials and Gen Zs, is the investment. So everybody is a big investor in funds, and people talk about the purchases that they're making, about their favorite live streamers and what they bought in terms of cosmetics or skincare, or about specific brands, or about the hot topics. So if you're not part of that, then of course it becomes very difficult to to belong to this circle.
Yeah, like I'm more like Gen Z now, frankly, more than my nephew. He doesn't spend as much as I do. Like I have to buy like a robot cleaning vacuum machine for him, and he doesn't need that. He told me, and have to return it. And the mahjong machine I told you about, my brother bought it. They just played it tonight because it's a Chinese New Year, small New Year.
Yeah.
They were playing the last 2 hours. I was chatting with them, and it was awesome. So I have that kind of spending habit now. Spending, because spending is important to stimulate the economy now, especially here in the United States. If you don't spend, the economy would just stay still and going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So
that's
very important. Keep on spending.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. And Syca, I've got a question to you. What is the difference between millennials and Gen Zs? A lot of people are very confused when it comes to that definition, and also, how differently do they behave? Is there really such a big gap? Like, what is your take on this millennial versus Gen Z? Because right now, Zongqi also mentioned that he is probably more in the millennial gap. So there's always this like, okay, I'm a couple of years ahead, a couple of years behind. So what is the difference between them?
Well, actually, I think the differences between them is not that big, but there is something that might be slightly different. So, first of all, me myself belongs to millennials. Yeah, I'm not a Gen Z because for Gen Z, it's mostly post 95s, and for millennials, they're mostly like post 89s and post 90s. Just like me, and I believe maybe Zongqi, you too?
Yes. Right now, he's been moved to the audience. But yes, okay. I think majority of us are here post 89s, as you say, and post 90s rather than post 95s. If we have some Gen Zs, do raise your hand, and we would be very happy to see Gen Zs here on stage as well. Awesome. So any other differences?
Yes, because for Gen Z, just I've mentioned, they didn't like they were born in a digital era, and actually, this digital era of them, accompanied their growth all the way is much more advanced than the millennials. So in our time, I remember it was not until I was in the junior high school, then I first have this QQ. You know, first have this QQ social media app. Yeah, and also the computers. So it was much more digitalized than our times, and which means they are more acceptable towards the digital chance. Yeah, they are more willing to absorb, to contact with the new things, new friends, and new circles. Yes, for example, like live streaming. I have many millennials friends, and you may say that live streaming is like everybody in China they will go shopping through live streaming, but not everybody. For example, the millennials, they actually didn't have built this very high trust in shopping in live streaming. I mean the percentage. But most Gen Z, they are willing to buying things to go shopping on live streaming because it is so normal to them, but not to other consumer groups. Yes, yeah. This is what I think the differences between millennials and Gen Z, and I'd like to also mention something about the insights for the brands. May I?
Sure, sure. I would like to just add before you go into the brands that also the impact of this pandemic right now,
Yeah.
COVID-19, it probably is going to impact millennials versus Gen Zs differently because many millennials actually already work. And when it comes to Gen Zs, some of them are still in school, correct? And
Yes.
and essentially the ones that are still in school and the ones that have lived through this very difficult COVID-19 year, they may come out of it much more comfortable being alone, and that they are already the biggest contributors to the single economy, and they might come out of it essentially feeling also a little bit insecure, like you don't know what's going to happen with the job market, you don't know when something's going to close or open, whether domestic or international travel is allowed or not, etc. So for somebody who already has, let's say, a job or some level of stability, they have gone through this pandemic having the anchor somewhere. But for very young people that are just beginning their life in society, I think that was, a really big shake-up. A good friend of mine is working in the mental, kind of support, or let's say personal development / mental and psychological development, services in mainland China. And what they are seeing also that right now, including, government offices and some tech companies and universities, they're also setting up this, support help desks to make sure that you can guide young minds through these uncertain times and make sure that they don't go into extremes. Like we can see some of these extremes at a large scale in Japan, where people close themselves at home and just basically don't want to go out and feel very comfortable in their virtual world. We see that in Korea as well. So that's a little bit in some areas maybe an Asian thing, but at the same time China right now, especially these younger people that were very digitally connected, but also with this high level of uncertainty going through something like COVID-19, we now see grassroots opportunities and ways to help them to essentially go through this crisis. When we look at somebody who already had a job, slightly older, they usually got out of it with a lot less uncertainty and essentially anxieties, I would say that. And Syca, please go ahead.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, because for the past pandemic, I mean, like all of the age groups, all walks of people in the society, they have been through a very traumatic times. And actually, this pandemic has also combined people together to be more stick to each other. And there is one thing I also like to mention about this. Like for the last year's Double 11, the products within the health preservance industry is like having a great and rapidly growth in sales revenues, and among them, a large consumer group is Gen Z. And actually, Gen Z, they have started to pay more attention to their health, to their body, and they do not only buy the health supplements, buy these health equipments for themselves, but they would also buy those things for their family members. I think one of the reasons behind this, because this pandemic, that they really learn to treasure, learn to cherish the life, learn to cherish their families more. Yes, just a quick note. And also, the thing I'd like to share about for the insights of brands is for now the young people in China. So in terms of consumption, right now it's no longer the materialized products that they're willing to pursue, they're willing to buy. But right now they're more willing to buy for experience, buy for their mental needs. So right now, if you walk into any bookstore in a, let's say, first tier cities, so you would see it's no longer just for books. You will see the coffee shops, like you will see some small shops for those art and fresh new things together. And maybe you can also see a small theater. So it's all about experience. Yes. So for the strategy part, if the brands, they want to target the consumer group of Chinese Gen Z, the young people, so this angle of experience shopping is also a good point for them. Yeah,
Gorgeous, gorgeous, and I absolutely agree with you. In fact, this bookstore craze started already in 2019. You remember when all these big chains suddenly opened, coffee shops, they opened exhibitions, they opened stationery extensions, etc., and really turned their locations into some sort of hangout place. At the same time, remember how back in 2000, I think the earliest it was probably 2018, even when we saw some furniture stores or some traditional department stores opening coffee shops with books as a point to attract young people. So one big furniture retailer, I forgot their name, but they're collaborating with JD to make sure that their essentially furniture retail experience is plugged into the new retail concept with tracking people and making sure that they track conversion and all that. So they, on the first floor, introduced literally half the floor was a huge bookstore, driving young people into this huge furniture center. And it was a hangout place. As you said, there's a theater, there's an exhibition, the art, some experiential place. And that is why also we have such a hangout culture on the rise, right? All these teas and all the other cool companies. Well, we're not going to talk about Luckin Coffee today, but nonetheless, Starbucks is doing great things as well, opening in historic locations, connecting with the Chinese culture, and at the same time, creating this huge roastery, digital roastery in the city of in the center of Shanghai, etc. So this hangout culture, or for example, Haiti a couple of months ago opening the hangout cafe. Was it in Shenzhen or in Guangzhou, where you can bring your dogs and pets?
Yeah, in Shenzhen.
It was in Shenzhen. Yeah, that's right. So all that is essentially catering to them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome stuff. So these are our Gen Zs. Natalia, do you have anything to add? And also, guys, I see Chloe here, Luca, I've seen Mark, Anthony, Pinaki is here. Hello, Pinaki, John. If you guys have any questions that you would like to add anything, just raise your hand and I'm going to be very happy to bring you on stage as well.
Yeah, so as you basically asked about the ads-on, and I was also thinking what's actually my favorite consumer group, and I was thinking that it's also Gen Zs, but actually a certain part of Gen Z is the pet owners. so which is also now become very, very popular among much younger generations, so after the 90s, 95s. So with all their basically experience, and then interesting to see how Gen Zs, they also have different trends in terms of the preferred lifestyle, and so kind of like cold economy. Some of them become more like a pet oriented, others become more like the eco and health oriented people. And that's interesting that inside the Gen Zs there is also a lot of like groups which can be identified by their interest, and also the brands currently they are tailor-made, providing the tailor-made solution for these different groups. And it's interesting to see how these basically different markets is actually growing and providing unique products and experiences.
I absolutely agree with you. So obviously, just dividing somebody by gender or age or where they come from is never a good way to segment. Within Gen Z, which is the age group, essentially segmentation, there are also tons of subgroups. There are definitely, I do not know, some super young mothers. There are definitely some lower tier city youth. There are definitely somebody who is following fan economy or singles economy, or somebody who is truly contributing to this trend of pet lovers. And I know that Natalia is a pet owner. She's got a wonderful cat. I am a pet owner. I have a cute dog. So essentially, pets are very close to our heart. And when it comes to China, I think it's a very interesting consumer group, because when I moved to China back in 2006, there were very few pets. It was literally unheard of. Like, why would you have a cat? Or why would you have a dog? Like, it was just ridiculous. And then over the past 15 years, people really grew to enjoy, love, and understand, and make sure that, they care for the fluffy friend, and they truly treat it as a kid. Right now, a lot of luxury brands that are, in fact, catering to pet owners and pets themselves, from food to luxury, some outfits, to trackers, to toys, to feeders, to even, Natalia, you remember we had this company reaching out to us, funeral services, luxury funeral services for pets. So all of these are truly picking up in China, and this is just the beginning of the curve, because we are nowhere near the levels of, let's say, Europe or the United States when it comes to, per capita pet ownership, if we can say that. And beyond just cats and dogs, we right now also see a lot of exotic animals. Natasha, what do you think?
Yeah, that's actually true, because you started saying about the market growth and the difference between basically the 15 years and how it's actually developing right now. And it's actually quite a good result, because the market is growing 18% year on year. And it's actually expected that the whole market size by 2023 will be around like 500 billion renminbi. And then it's also including basically the food, the snacks, also basically the technology, and some kind of the services, because COVID-19 really like fueled this companionship of the pets. And also, like in 2020, it was interesting to see basically how the tech giants, they launched a tech insurance and also like recognition for pets. So for the pet owners. So
you mean facial recognition? I remember that. That was super cool. Yeah.
And it's actually amazing to see how basically the different brands, they also react to this market change. And also, for example, there was an insurance for that. And then, as you mentioned, the Haiti, for example, they launched more and more like the pet and coffee shop together. And then, for example, we also see interesting trend about the kiosks. Li has, I think it's Bichon Frise called the dog breed. And then they actually, in October 2020, they launched a joint, like a brand, Neva's Family, if I'm not mistaken. And these Bichon Frise also become kind of the bloggers to promote basically the products. And then we can see that also this kind of the humanization, that they put the cute pets basically on the product packages. And also, for example, luxury brands, I know that Prada and Moncler, they, for example, launch a special line of the outfit for the pets, and it's really amazing. And what's actually impressed me about the pet owners and why it's actually become so trending, it means like the result of, then we were basically preparing a report that basically live streamers with pets, they received 23 or 25 times more donations and gifts from basically the participants of this live streaming than a normal one, and it's actually amazing to see.
Next time we run a masterclass in March, we definitely need to bring a couple of pets, on screen to also raise the engagement. This is quite awesome. Syca, would you like to talk a bit more on pet lovers, and why do you think this? Apart from the obvious, the fact that people are having children a bit later, and older people are having a need of companions, but what are some of the other reasons perhaps why pets are really popular right now? By the way, just giving you a quick breakdown on the pet owners by generation, we see that 46% of pet owners in China right now are post 80s, so they are basically still quite young people, and then post 70s and post 90s rank at about 20%, and when it comes to really young people, post 95s and post 2000s, then it's still quite low. It's 3% each, around that.
Yes, absolutely. So actually, from my point of view, I'd like to give you a interesting data. Like now the penetrate of Chinese people that raising pets is less than 20%. But actually, in the social network, so the people who label themselves as pet owners is actually above 60%. So it's a huge gap. So right now, so for the first reason I would like to bring about is raising pets. No matter cats, dogs, or ducks, or even pigs, it's no longer just raising cats. It's becoming a social currency among the people. Yes, and especially among the young people. So they're very willing to label themselves as pet owners, as pet lovers, and pets are becoming a unique way for among them, like to social networking. Like they have the same topics. Yes, they can share
to connect, to belong to the community.
And right now the pet economy is actually booming in China, and according to the data I just shared, and we can see there is a huge space for the Chinese pet economy to booming further. And also because right now the young people they're more tending to spend money on themselves, because they really want to focus on themselves, and really want to please themselves. In Chinese it's called 取悦自己. They want to make themselves happy. So if you are going to like make a girlfriend, or make a boyfriend, or get married, or give birth to a child, that means you have to some extent, you can't be by yourself alone. You can't spend all of your money to yourselves. You have to spend your money, your time to other things. And they think raising a pet, maybe it's more cost effective, but also could give them some kind of like quality companionship. Then making a girlfriend or a boyfriend who can always quarrel with you and who can give you trouble. Yes. I think that's also one of the reasons behind.
Absolutely. And when you were just now talking, Syca, it reminded me, that there are 60% on social media that identify as pet lovers and pet owners, and only 20% actually own pets. So it reminds me of the huge number of millennials that also identify themselves as, regular sport enthusiasts, and actually a huge number of them are 1/3 of them, if I'm not mistaken, they're just faking it. They basically go to the gym to take a picture, or they dress up in their workout outfit, again just for social currency, but they are not really doing any vigorous sport, let alone regularly. So that's another thing that we see in this generation quite frequently. I have just now brought John on stage. Hi John.
Hi Ashley. Hi ladies.
How are you?
Yeah, thank you so much for this topic. It's fascinating and also very insightful. I'm an investor in consumer companies that are exposed to China. So one observation I have is the Z generation versus the previous generation actually quite different. It's a strong sense of duality that exists. If I'm looking across, for example, sportswear or cosmetics, you have Nike, Adidas, fairly successful. At the same time, Li-Ning, Anta also doing very well. Cosmetics, obviously, Estee Lauder, those type of companies doing extremely well. You also have the rise of the domestic champions, such as Perfect Diary, Huaxi, right? When you guys looking at the success factors for the whether international companies or domestic company, what do you think makes them successful, and how do they deal with the duality that this Z generation is much more patriotic, much more proud of who they are, versus the previous generations are much more have a stronger bias toward international brands?
Right. This is a great question. I'll just share a few thoughts and then open it up for ladies to comment. When it comes to duality, it's definitely there, and this polarization will only continue to happen because of the Yes National Pride movement, because right now many of the, consumers, especially young consumers that are particularly patriotic, they are located in second, third, and fourth tier cities, but they are slowly, and I say in many very significant industries, they are moving up to first tier cities as well. Besides that, another contributing factor is the fact that Chinese brands, in fact, are a lot more connected with the market. So they're able to come up with products faster, do marketing better, use hot topics very, to the point. And of course, the quality of the product is phenomenal. I've just given that example a couple of days ago in another chat. I'm a proud owner of a beautiful qipao and also a Western Western dress, which looks a little bit like qipao. And that is a Shanghai brand. The quality is probably better than Shanghai Tang, and it's 1/3 of the price, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Every time I'm in Shanghai, I make sure that I come by and purchase it. So the quality of products very often is good. For some industries, for some categories, for example, in body, on body, cosmetics, or baby food, or some products that are contributing to your health, be it some gadgets and devices, or be it some vitamins, etc. International brands still have a bit of the edge, but I don't think that this is an untouched category anymore, where Chinese properly created and communicated brands and products cannot move anymore. So that already happens. We have Chinese medicine being packaged as little yogurt boxes, right, or as little candies, and people are eating them as snacks and as vitamins, essentially following the Chinese traditional tradition and advice. So this is the reason for it, and we cannot stop it. It's definitely going to happen. And after that, in a couple of years from now, these amazing products from China, high quality, they will also go international. There's just no way to stop it. They will go to Southeast Asia, and they will go, to many other markets. And later on, eventually, they will arrive also to the US and Europe. So this is my take on that. And when it comes to how can brands, market and prepare, I think for strong categories, as said, in body, on body, there's still a slight advantage, but you cannot just play on your country origin anymore. You cannot just say, oh, we have better ingredients and, we grow our XYZ in Australia. You need to do a lot more than that. You need to be a lot more localized, and you need to be very culturally sensitive and educated. So it does become more difficult, because right now competition is not only coming from international brands that are trying to get the piece of the same pie, but also from domestic brands. So the most agile and the most, the best products, the most creative, whatever, marketing, e-commerce, the most plugged in companies will survive, and others will either change their business model or eventually leave the market. So that's how I see it. Syca, Natalia, John, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that to answer the question about why they basically the local brands, they're also quite successful among the consumers. So I think that they, as you mentioned, that they react really much faster to the new trends and the new functionality of the platforms. For example, if we speak about the Perfect Diary, so which had just launched a couple of the days or a week ago, so about live streaming in the channel, and the Perfect Diary already basically start being there, and then they got actually a 100,000 viewership. So they really know their audience. Their audience basically communicated on these channels, and then they don't basically afraid to try it and then to see what's actually the result. So they stay flexible in all these changes, and also they are quite basically the local brands, they're also hearing their consumers. That's why we can now see many a kind of promotions that consumers suggested to choose basically the color of the palettes, or for example to come up with the design of the special products, or what's actually their flavor tested. And then in this kind of the campaigns, if basically some suggestions got a huge vote from the audience, they also start launching these products. And I think that this is also what wins consumers' heart. So basically these personalized opportunities and personalized approach to what they actually want. And many other basically companies, they also start adjusting their models to more like a customer to manufacturer approach than just basically going through all the stages of the developing new products.
I think this is a very big thing, Natalia, product co-creation. Absolutely. John, you were saying?
Yes. Right, I think, absolutely, you guys have wonderful takes. Well, one thing I observe in terms of domestic guys, they're much more willing to try out things. I think the Z generation are more forgiving in the sense that if you look at the Perfect Diary or Huaxi's, right, they're willing to use the new retail concepts to push out products. If it works, great. Doesn't work, you know what, they'll come back and try it again. So they're much more willing to take a risk, much more entrepreneur in that sense. Whereas the more established international brands tend to play the safe because the formula has been working for decades. There's no reason for them to tweak it much. So they kind of just, benefiting from what has worked. At the same time, when they're dealing with a fast changing and very innovate, I think very savvy, very savvy Z generation rise from China. I think they're just a bit more slow in terms of willing to, number one, take a risk, number two, willing to try things that different versus they have done in the previously. Feels like there's going to be some kind of balance that's going to be reached at some point. At this moment, it feels like the emerging of the domestic as the momentum is stronger at the moment. That's kind of my sense. I'm not sure if you guys feel the same way.
Absolutely.
I just also want to add here that for most of us, we are actually quite known about the cosmetics brands or some other basically the beauty care brands, but it's not only related to the beauty care brand. I think that a great examples also will be here about the food brands, which also react to consumers' viewers about basically how they treat things. I have a great example of Three Squirrels. This is a nut company. And then, for example, first, then they were starting to approach the company for the last few years. They really grow a lot. And why they actually done it? Because first of all, they think, okay, what's actually the view of consumers on the nuts products? What actually the challenges they might have? And then, for example, many consumers, they raise the point that for nuts, it's actually very hard to peel the shell. And then what they launch, they actually make it a very smart decision that there was already a cut in this shell, and then you can easily open it. And this is actually what consumers really like. And then they was also thinking about, okay, what else? That nuts becomes also a very healthy snack, and then they start promoting to a very healthy snack. So what's important for the local companies, they start thinking what actually consumers want to receive in this product. And this is what's actually been in the heart. It's not only about basically the new retail or basically the approach. It's also about thinking about what problem the product can resolve for the basically consumers. And this is awesome job which Chinese companies do in a variety of the industries.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yes, and also I want to share about because just now, John, you've mentioned like Perfect Diary, or Natalia, you've mentioned Three Squirrels, and actually those brands are domestic, and we can call this consuming trend. We can call it 国潮 economy. Yes, and actually 国潮 economy is redefined, made in China, because like several decades ago, like made in China, the sentiment of this space would give you like the low quality, cheap price, but now it's completely changed. So right now, it's 国潮 is not only about a fashion trend, but actually behind it, it also reflects the new generation of the young people's their recognition of Chinese culture. They are proud of being a Chinese, and they are proud of Chinese culture. And actually, here is also a good example I'd like to bring you on. It's from the fashion toys industry, Pop Mart.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Yes,
blind
absolutely.
box. Yeah, it's actually right now the #1 brand in China's fashion toys market. And actually, behind its success, I think the most important thing is they're really sensitive to the needs and to the trends among the market and among the Generation Z. And actually, from the strategy part, they have worked with different designers to create lots of IPs, and they also work with foreign artists to attract those attention from the youngsters, and also they do co-branding. And as for the appearance, they have very delicate design to cater to the appearance economy, because people right now, especially young people, they are like crazy of those products that have a very beautiful appearance and very unique appearance. Yes, and also do celebrity endorsements to cater to the fans economy. So fans economy, appearance economy, co-branding, working with designers, those things are very like they do this combination to cater to the consumer needs. So I say they are very smart and sensitive to those trends. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And that's where the future is. Guochao, going global now. I see we have another hand. The reason I'm gonna bring Zongxi back on stage. Hi. Oh, let me try that again. Zongxi is getting on stage. Yuri, I see that you've also risen your hand. Let me just go one by one. Hey.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, it's great. I mean, this is a very insightful, talk. This is awesome. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm older. I'm 70. I was born in 78, so I'm 3 years old now. But I feel like I'm probably younger.
Millennial at heart.
Because I'm by myself. I'm single, not married, so I have a more disposable income than most of my friends or most of my peers that I know. So that's make me more close to millennials probably.
Awesome stuff.
People always say that I need to grow up a little bit, but I like to spend money for things like that. To enjoy life. Basically, that's my philosophy. You have to spend the money to make it real, to realize their value. Otherwise, it's just sitting in the bank as a number. What's the point?
And this is beautiful. We have an opportunity to hear firsthand how the mental millennial feels and mental Gen Z feels. That's gorgeous. Zongxi, if you're not talking, you can also mute yourself. And when you are talking, do unmute. Yuri, I also brought you on stage right now. Very happy to have you here. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. Great phone conversation. I've been in China for 25 years, but I would like to pick your brains a little bit in terms of what's happening with Gen Z. let's say 24 years and younger in China, consumer level, and how it relates to the Gen Z values globally. To give you a sense, Gen Z globally is characterized by being the we generation instead of me, plant-based, fully in line with purpose and nature and environment. It's network-based, self-organized, self-management, and it's also called the more artistic, creative generation, relative to, let's say, millennials, which is more about the hero, individual me generation. So my question to you, all of you, is to reflect upon my thesis. Do you see the same convergence of Gen Z in China compared to globally, or do you see differences? And if so, which differences? Thank you.
Wonderful question. Thank you so much, Yuri. Syca, Natalia, would you like to pick that up, or do you want me to set the stage?
I think I can start from the first part about what makes actually generation similar. So as you mentioned about more like close to nature, and I think that it's actually the result of the COVID-19 outbreak. So if we look basically on domestic travels, we can see basically the rise of like individual traveling, going outside. So like in events or like in a camping, and being basically close more to nature, to basically to see the beauty of the home country. And I think that this is what makes actually generation similar in basically outside of China and inside China. And also because many people in China, they see the COVID-19 situation as the time for the reflection of their health. So that's why I can also say that this is also kind of what makes Generation Z similar. So that they basically start thinking about what they consume, what they eat. So, and also start thinking about more like a fitness program. So even if they fake it, I mean, like they still start to thinking about it, and also about some health supplements. So this is what I think are making basically the generations similar. And I think that Syca can tell a little bit more about what actually makes different.
Yes, and here I'd like to share with you some trends when comparing like China's Gen Z with China's Millennial, China's Gen X, or Australian, Japan, South Korea Gen Z. Actually, there are some trends that make them different. So, for example, the China's Gen Z, they're actually more optimistic, impulsive, and actually, just like we've mentioned before, so they're more willing to like outspend their budget. They're more willing to spend when comparing to the Gen Z in other countries. And also they have this unique desire for unique products and services. For example, they would love to buy a air jacket from Louis Vuitton, and which will cost them like 30,000 RMB, or buy a Supreme brick, or buy something very, very unique and very like niche to make themselves more special and more outstanding and more social networks with their friend circle.
And Syca, on that point, so reverting back to Yuri's question, so his kind of summary was, in the West, Gen Z is usually described as Generation We. Right? So we are trying to come together to protect the earth, to become, I don't know, vegetarians, to, to consider more common good, harmony, etc., rather than individual needs. Like millennials are generation me. I want to, So in China, do you also see, from your personal experience, do you also see that there's a bigger trend into becoming guilt-free consumers, into becoming, kind of contributing and thinking about beyond me? Or are they still focused on myself first and then everything else? What is your personal take?
I think right now, for my personal experience, I think there will be more me at least stage, because we can see like the happy singles just now, Zongxi has also mentioned that the happy singles, and right now, there are more and more people, they're willing to choose like stay single because they want to focus their time, their money on their own. So I think they would prioritize me comparing to others. And actually, behind this idea, I think firstly is because the China's Gen Z, they are growing up in an environment that's more open. So they start to learn from the Western culture from a very early age, and this kind of new things, the different culture, different from the culture in China, really attracts them, and they are willing to learn more, to be open-minded. And secondly, the Gen Z in China are mostly born within a single child family. Yes, not like the Gen Z in Western countries, because in Western country there's almost like 2 to 3 children, and there might be more we. Yes, and these 2 reasons are what I came up with with this question. And please, Ashley, you can add on some insights.
Perfect. How about John, Zongxi, and Yuri? Would you like to say something based on that, or?
Actually, can I say something?
Sure. Please go ahead.
Yes,
I just realized I was on mute. Please go ahead.
Actually, for me personally, I can only speak for myself on this. I'm staying single because I'm widower. I lost my husband a few years back. It's just, if I have a choice, I would be happy to have a family, have kids. I'm at that age now. I want to have kids, especially I have 2 older brothers. I'm from a rare family because my parents were from the countryside back then when I was born. So I was lucky enough to be alive, to be able to be born, to enjoy this life, because it's just a pure accident. My mom actually had the device on to, so that she wouldn't have more children than necessary. She was having both my older brothers, and then I was born anyways. And then it's just it's not by choice a lot of times, and even for my single status, it's also not by choice. I would be happy to enjoy family life if I'm lucky enough to meet someone in the future. But for most of people, like gay people, it's very it's a very easy open relationship, or because relationship is hard to hold together. That's why people have a lot of freedom. They kind of give up. When you cannot something a stable family, then it's the pursuit of that family life. It's just so hard. So so basically, it's just let it go, and actually that makes you feel more freedom if you let it go. And I think in the modern Chinese youngsters, like my both nephews, one is 18, one is 24 actually. So my older nephew is 24, and neither of them have the urge of getting married anytime soon. I think they're both straight, or it doesn't matter actually. So that's how open-minded the younger generation are. They know exactly what they want. They're not in it and want to do. They feel the total comfort of cruising through the rest of their life. And it's just I'm speaking only for my nephews.
Absolutely.
Since I only know them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zongxi, for sharing.
And they have all the disposable income or money. And, their parents work super hard, so they have all the money they want to spend. But they chose to be spend very modestly. The same habit from my parents. And I'm probably the only one that spent more than necessary.
Understand. Very, very useful, very, very interesting, and thank you very much for sharing.
No problem.
Yeah. Yuri, you were about to say something?
Well, I'm gonna leave, so hope to see you soon again all. Thank you so much, Ashley and others. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Yuri. Awesome stuff. Guys, do we still have questions when it comes to Chinese consumers? So far, we have at length covered Gen Zs, and we have also spoke about a subgroup within them, pet lovers. If there's any other particular group that you would like to talk about, please raise your hand. I would be very happy to bring you on stage so we can continue this conversation.
Ashley, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, and I keep talking, guys. Unfortunately, I was on mute, and I was saying, if you guys still have questions about any consumer groups at all, we have so far covered Gen Zs and the pet lovers, which is a subgroup of Gen Zs very often. Please do raise your hand, and we're going to be happy to bring you on stage. Natasha, Syca, if you would like to share anything else when it comes to Chinese consumers, would be very happy to hear your thoughts.
I actually thought that because we have also with us today Oscar, and Oscar was recently sharing also his view in terms of male consumption. So how is basically male consumers in China spending and what they're doing. So it will be, I think, great to know more and discuss more about the male consumers, because mostly that we talk about like now the
name of them, Chinese name is Bo Mei. And he has, take care of that puppy. Is like, more than his son,
Yeah.
He spent all the money he made on the dog more than anything.
Yeah. And that's very common.
That's a very interesting behavior. It's like grandparents, they would spoil the grandchild, like a unlimited, no curb at all. They would not spend anything on themselves, but for their grandchildren or their pets, it's just total different category. It's like there's no control. Absolutely,
a very, very similar thing happens right now with pets. I totally agree with you. We see that very often when you go to the what's it called, the pet clinic, right? And then you see people that come in for anything, like the dog has a slight sneeze, right? And then they bring the dog and they sit there half a day, definitely very concerned, very like literally very often projecting their kind of parent feelings onto the pet, which is very, very unusual for the Chinese culture traditionally. I see Oscar here with us. Oscar, would you like to tell us a bit more about male consumers in China?
Well, hi, Ashley. Actually, I don't have so much data on my hand at this moment, but I would like to share my experience in the male consumption. Sorry, I'm actually a little bit nervous.
Sure.
Yes. As a man, I think we would like to spend more money on the electronic products like the PS5, I think, and our phones and computers, something like that, because we always focus on the products that can increase our life experience, can increase our life standards, something like that, and we also pay for the service, like massage. I think that's something I mentioned could increase our life experience, I think.
Very cool. I also see that in Asia in general, and in particularly in China in the past year and something, male consumers, are becoming a lot more distinct as a consumer group, because traditionally in the world, majority of consumption decisions and consumer decisions are in the hands of women. Women go to a supermarket, to department stores, women make decisions on behalf of their children, very often husband as well, and their own parents. So right now in China, I see that more and more, for instance, young, men start making decisions about their, I do not know, lifestyle, their cosmetics or skincare, about decorating their apartment. And that was also very unusual before, right? You would usually live with your parents, and then if you move somewhere, you just let your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, handle the thing. But it wouldn't be a big determining factor. But right now, young people especially, they want to live in really nice environment where they would set up a corner for stationery, a corner for, I don't know, bar setup, a corner for, I don't know, the workout, etc., etc. And people spend a lot of time decorating that, including men, which I think is very, very interesting. And the same thing for skincare. I mean, skincare routine for a man, tell that to my brother, he would drop dead when you're talking about it. And the only person that traditionally would, encourage a husband or encourage a man to use skincare routine would be a woman, either a concerned sister or concerned, a mother or a wife. So this is big shift. And also I think appearance really starts to matter, not only to young Chinese, but also to middle-aged. You know how the big topic in China is losing hair. So everybody is right now into hair growing devices and wigs and all that. So I find it a very, very interesting movement when it comes to men empowerment, I would even say.
Actually, that's a very astute observation. So one sector I'd love to hear you guys' opinion is regarding the medical beauty space. What we are observing is just penetration is very low in China currently. It start to take off. So if you look at the experience in Asia, obviously South Korea by far is the leading medical beauty penetration in terms both whether it's Botox, cosmetic surgeries, and Japan kind of follows. Less so in Taiwan. Just curious to hear your opinion regarding the medical beauty sector in China. Is going to follow more of the South Korea model or less so, and also the difference between men and women. One fascinating experience I had was when I first went to Japan. My friend told me, you have to look at the guys and look at the eyebrows. I said, why do I have to look at guys and the eyebrows? They're perfectly trimmed and just, beautiful, right? It's just, I'm just curious, when it comes to China, which footstep is China's consumers going to follow, and whether there's going to be any difference between, the guys and the men and women.
John, this is such a gorgeous question on both medical beauty and the fact that Japanese men wear beautiful eyebrows that are perfectly trimmed. But when it comes to China right now, I mean, when was the last time that you watched Li Jiaqi's, Austin Lee's live stream? Just look at his face, or switch on any iQIYI show and look at the boys band or some of the actors, or even some live streams where we see let's say heads of big companies, especially if they're younger. What I mean by younger is below 30. So very often, especially youth, we call them soft boys or tender boys, right? But basically, these guys very often wear more makeup than I wear, unless I do some video shooting in a studio, in a professional studio, and there's a lot of lamps shining on my face, and you really need to wear that makeup because it's the way it is, the whole industry is set up. But essentially, it is absolutely crazy. I think they are definitely learning a lot from the Korean and Japanese fellows. But when you are talking about, medical beauty, I think there are two things that we need to understand. That yes, in general, it is going to keep growing. And China in the past 2 years has had a lot of scandals when it comes to medical beauty, unlicensed clinics performing Botox and, this kind of non-invasive and invasive surgeries. So there's been a lot of, I would say, black PR and PR crises in this particular industry. A lot of people still prefer to go to Japan or Korea to perform their operation. Right now, obviously, traveling is not possible. Also, the growing industry is in Thailand. So there's definitely a push towards, yes, there will be more and more people doing that. But on the other hand, the thing that kind of stops it from going over the top is the fact that Chinese government continuously communicates, and because Chinese government communicates, also the platforms such as e-commerce platforms, digital marketing platforms, social media platforms, they're constantly communicating regulations and also the standard for beauty. So they don't want to go over the top. For example, previously on Xiaohongshu, I'm sure you remember, we had tons of advertising, of some very non-reliable kind of treatments, etc., etc. So right now it's highly regulated. So how do you portray, how do you advertise your service? How do you portray what is beautiful, what is not? Also on TV, they don't encourage somebody with a significantly changed shape of, let's say, nose job or eye job or whatever other job. They don't suggest these people to appear on TV or TV shows, because that also encourages essentially people to follow in their footsteps, or somebody who abuses their, I do not know, natural kind of body shape with, for example, removing a couple of ribs and having this tiny little waist that is just totally unnatural, etc., etc. So it's not fully free. Wherever the market goes, that's where China goes, because government is injecting some of their, I would say, thinking into that, and they are trying to shape it in a different way. So definitely, in my view, it is going to grow for both men and women, especially for younger generation. But at the same time, I don't think that it would just go fully crazy like it has gone in, in places like Latin America or Korea, where every second woman or man has essentially undergone some of those procedures. What do you guys think? The rest of us, we have Oscar, Natalia, Syca.
Yeah, I just want to add here, because I just remember that to follow up with your question, John, that about the aesthetical medicine. So actually, Ashley, several weeks ago, shared a report about this, and then I still remember how I was impressed by the number that basically it's 2 years ago there was only 450 or 500, something like that, at hospitals for the plastic surgery, and at the beginning of the 2020 the number was around 14,000 hospitals, and then officially registered hospitals. And I was so impressed by this number, and it's really become more in trend. And as Ashley was now mentioning, that previously people go to Korea, to Thailand, but because of the borders closed, and then in 2020 we see that it's become a huge rise of aesthetical medicine, because people were staying inside China, and then they still want to basically make some anti-aging procedures. And it also was following the trend of 30 plus women, empowerment. And then these anti-aging procedures become very, very popular. So, and it's also not only reflected basically in terms of a Botox, as you mentioned, but it's become photo rejuvenation as a procedure, and also hyaluronic acid. They become the most basically in demand processes for basically the women to keep and maintain their beauty.
Got it. Thank you very much.